Hey everyone, welcome to the Walk to Wealth podcast. I have a very special guest with me, my new friend Stephen. Stephen, for anyone that may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it that you do?
Yeah. Hey, John. Thanks for having me on. My name's Stephen Nagy. I live down in South Florida in the Jupiter, Palm Beach County area with my wife and my son. And, what I do is I teach people how to take back control of their money and solve their money problem. And I know that that's kind of a broad subject, and that's what we're going to get into today, though. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, and before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything, tell us a little bit about, your walk to wealth. How did you end up here? How did you, end up about the infinite, banking concept and, the money mentor stuff before all that happened? What was going on in your life? How did you get here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up in a small little town in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, and, that whole lifestyle of, just small town living and kind of country and that kind of thing. And so out of college, I moved down to Southwest Florida over in the Fort Myers, Cape Coral area. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was fresh, I was young, and I was trying to enjoy life. So I got a job at a car dealership. And when I got there, I actually met somebody that had just retired from being as a financial advisor for American Express Financial Advisors. So, over working there and hanging out with him, just kind of talking about, hey, what I want to be when I grow up and stuff like that. And he's like, you'd probably be really good as a financial advisor. And I was like, all right, well, I don't really know anything about that world. I didn't really, I studied business in school and whatnot, but I didn't know the difference in a stock and a bond at the time. But it sounded like cool. So I read a book called Liar's Poker and, some of the like Boiler Room I used to love, if you remember that movie, Boiler Room. So little things like that. I was like, that could be kind of fun. That could be kind of cool, financial advisor. So I went in so he got me an interview. So I went in and I did the interview and they basically told me, they said, hey, listen, if you can get licensed, then we'll sponsor you and you can come on board as a financial advisor. So I went out and I started studying and ended up getting licensed. My Series 7, Series 66, Florida 215 variable annuity, full 9 yards. So I went to work as a financial advisor. I thought I was going to be, hot shit. I thought I was going to be out there, being able to really help people with their finances and learn all about, the stock market. And then reality hit.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, traditional ways of investing, traditional ways of putting your money in a 401k and riding the stock market and, everything they tell us to do to be able to retire the way we want to down the road, it doesn't seem to work out in the real world. Do you know what I mean by that? So I was doing that for a couple of years and I was introduced, somebody invited me to a real estate investment seminar. And I sat there listening to a speaker at the front of the room and what he was saying made a lot of sense to me. To me, real estate, being an entrepreneur, being able to control your destiny, all the stuff that they do to motivate you. I was like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Like, that sounds pretty interesting. So I decided to start, learning a little bit more about it. And I got into real estate investing. So my cousin who was my business partner at the time, who, I still do work with these days. But we went out there, we started flipping houses. We started wholesaling houses. We started getting into a little bit of rentals. And so we really started getting into that world and loved it. And so I was doing that on the side as being a financial advisor, and I did very well with it. And then I was introduced to Robert Kiyosaki. Are you familiar with Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki?
That's how I started my journey, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I love it, man. I love it. So I'm a huge fan of Kiyosaki, cash flow quadrant, everything he teaches. And so, at the time, the situation I was in, at the time, Robert was launching a educational company to teach other people, about his system, about, what Rich Dad, Poor Dad teaches in the books, but in the real world. And because of the success I had in real estate and what I was doing, I actually had an opportunity to go out there and start traveling and teaching what I was doing and teaching Robert's system to other people around the country. So I was in my mid-20s at the time. And so you tell me like, hey, you can go out there and do what you love doing and teach other people and get out of grinding 65, 70 hours a week as a financial advisor. I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll go do that. So I went and started traveling the country and I started teaching this stuff and I started learning more about sales and I started learning more about the psychology of what it takes to truly be an entrepreneur and be successful. And I started learning about public speaking and training. And see, I became a financial advisor because that's the part I loved. I love helping other people. I came from a really crazy, wacky childhood where I won't get into it right now, but I didn't come from a lot of wealth. I didn't come from, financial education and success and things like that. So when I started having it, I was like, man, I need to share this. So I love the financial advising aspect of where I was working with people. But here's the problem I had with it at the time. When we look at the Social Security Administration tells us a statistic that's very important. So the Social Security Administration tells us if you take 100 people at retirement age, only 5 of those 100 people are going to be able to retire the lifestyle and the age that they want to. Meaning 95% of Americans in the richest country the world has ever known, with more opportunity than ever possible out there, 95% of people are still not going to be able to retire the way and the lifestyle that they want to. So that was my job as a financial advisor, is I would sit down with clients and I would say, tell me your hopes and your dreams. What does retirement look like for you? I mean, John, if I asked you that question right now, and then I asked one of the listeners right now, one of the viewers on here, what their idea of retirement is, you guys are going to have completely different ideas, right? Maybe John, maybe you want private airplanes and yachts and multiple homes, where somebody else might just want to be able to, not have to work and just go golfing a couple times a week and go visit their grandkids. Like, everyone's different, right? You know what I mean? So I would have them lay out their hopes and their dreams, and then I would have to crush those dreams because reality would set in. Because they would tell me, hey, I want to live this lifestyle, retire at age 62. And then I'd say, okay, well, you're 40 years old now. This is what you already have going. Well, we're going to have to drastically change this to make you reach those goals. So you're either going to have to, change your lifestyle now and stop spending so much so you can save more, or you're going to have to take on a bunch more risk because the money you do have, we're going to have to put it into more risky investments to try and make it grow greater, more risk reward and everything. Or if you don't like either of those options, then instead of retiring at age 62, well, we're going to have to push that back 5 years. And then if everything goes perfectly, then you'll be able to retire at age 67. But let me ask you, does everything go perfectly? No. So we would have to go and completely change what they planned on doing to be able to try and maybe hope that they're able to achieve those goals. And that's what a financial advisor does, because we're working within the confines of traditional investing, of things like the stock market, of things like 401ks and IRAs, traditionally speaking. And so I would have those conversations. So when I was able to go out there with Robert Kiyosaki's group and really learn what entrepreneurship is about, how to, when we look at why more people aren't successful, there's 3 wealth killers: taxes, inflation, and volatility. And when you follow things like what Kiyosaki teaches, John, what you do, what we teach, what I teach now today, how you can become your own bank. I have my hat on right now, BYOB, become your own banker. So when you learn how to take back control of your money, when you learn how to be the bank, when you learn how to continuously have your money moving for you, making more money in low risk environments where it's protected by things like real estate, that's how we're able to start creating true wealth. So when I was able to go out there and start teaching real strategies on how to create real wealth in this country, well, I said, you know what? I'm never going to look back. And so I let all my licenses go, 7, 60. I worked so hard for those things too. Like, if you've ever studied for a securities exam, they compare it to like getting your bar, like an attorney taking the bar exam. It's not hard. So when I got to that point where I was like, am I going to give all that up? It was only a few years ago, or am I, and it was a hard decision, but I said, I got to do it because I never want to go back to doing it that way. I never want to teach people that again. I want to teach them how to really make themselves successful and create a legacy for them and their families. And that was, almost 14 years ago now. And ever since, that's what I've been able to do, is continue to build my businesses. I've owned several businesses over the years we can talk about, but everything that I've done over the years is concentrated along learning a new strategy, learning a new technique, implementing it in my life, and going out there and teaching it to other people. And it's allowed me to develop a very nice lifestyle and a way of life where when I work every day, when I do podcasts and webinars with people like you, John, it's not work, it's fun. And when you can live every day and have a good time doing it, one of my good I see your picture, John, when I saw your little thumbnail, you got the nice clean cut hair, and then I see you on the webinar with the long flow. That's what it's all about, right? Because when you work for yourself and you control your destiny, you control your money, who cares what other people think? And when you get to that point, I was telling this story earlier, I was speaking on a stage in Columbia, South Carolina last weekend. We had over 100 people in the room, right? And so I'm there, and in the past I would have gone up there with my nice, I was talking money, so investing in money. So I would go up there with my nice tie on and suit and nice dress shoes and things like that. No, I do what I want now. There's people I want to work with, and if you don't like me, then I don't want to work with you anyways. So I go up there with my Jordans on, my jeans, my hoodie on, like take it or leave it. This is who I am. So I love the hair, by the way, man, John. That's awesome. So, but that's what.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Right. So one of my favorite songs, Dirty Heads, Vacation. Every single day, because I love my occupation. Like, it's such a great jam. And that's the way I live my life. So it's been a heck of a journey. I came from nothing, but I've been self-taught. And don't get me wrong, over the years, there's been ups and there's been downs, but you always learn from it. You always move forward. You get the motivation. You get the coaches, the trainers, the mentors that are going to take you to the next level. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple points or several points I wanted to touch on. The first of which is, funny story with my hair. I came in thinking that, I'm going to get my hair braided so it's nice, kept down, professional photo. And it's funny because remember one time I had an internship back in high school. And for my high school, I still had, my hair was nowhere near as long as it is now, but I had it braided. And it was at a some financial institution in New York City. And they pretty much told me not to come in while I had my hair in braids. And I didn't understand why, but it rubbed me the wrong way because it's like, what do braids have to do with anything? Then fast forward a little bit, then I got into real estate, and it's like one day I remember I had my hair out, and I was on like a Zoom call with a bunch of other agents, and I don't remember what I said. I think I said something. It wasn't the smartest thing on earth. I just said something, but the fact that I had my hair out, everyone fell in love with it after. So I still have to get a headshot with my hair out to rebrand myself because no one knows me by my braided hair anymore. My entire brand is now kind of just like, you think John, you think hair, essentially. So now I got to get a rebranding. So there's that. And then another thing too, I love the hat. I definitely need to get my hat. So after the show, we need to talk about how I can get some merch because the BYOB hat is definitely a must have, especially for the bad hair days when I just put my hair in the hat. Like, I don't know, you can't really see, but in the corner, I got like a bunch of hats that I have at all times I could just pull on and ready to go. And then overall, like, I really love your story just because like the idea of giving back, it's like that it's like what we're doing, it's so much bigger than what we really think it is because it'll, especially being documented now with podcasts, it's like it's evergreen. So it's like this will live on for forever. And like for me, I'm in a different situation. I'm on like still like the beginning of the journey where you're a little more established and you're further down the road. But it's like, nevertheless, the information that's being passed along is still great information, which is why I didn't shy away from starting my podcast. It's like, yeah, I'm not where, that successful level, but I'm still good information. So I still have to do that out there. And one thing I always hated is the people that waited until they made it to then tell you to buy their course. It's like, where's the backstory? Which is why I always ask, what's your walk to wealth? How'd you get to where you're at? Because I feel like people resonate with it a bunch more. And then last thing, before we get into the BYOB system is I love the fact that you come on with your Jordans, your hoodie, because people get too caught up in trying to build an image that's not for them. Like I teach their agents social media, and like I tell them, it's like, if you're not going to be yourself, don't bother posting. So just do not bother showing your face if you're not going to present who you actually are, because so many people get caught up. And it's like, there's this one guy I seen who's in like California selling $70 million houses, super big time luxury agent. His fit to every listing appointment is a plain black t-shirt, plain black jeans, plain black shoes. It's not, Louis Vuitton suit, suited up with Gucci sunglasses and a Ferrari. It's like, he drives a pretty nice car, but like, he's not presenting this super high wealth status luxury image that you would, typically see in a luxury agent. It's like, he's just himself. He just presents himself clean, and he goes out, does his thing, sells $70 million houses, never throws on a suit. You don't have to be successful in this day and age. And then on that note, let's get a little bit into this banking stuff, because I'm super excited. I know I watched a bunch of YouTube in preparation for this podcast just so I could understand a little bit as to, what it all means. But, where do we start?
And what you said real fast, on everything's out there now with the ability with podcasts and be able to record like this, and it's evergreen, it's out there. I mean, this is an opportunity that I think a lot of us have taken advantage of because of COVID. I mean, if you look at anytime there's disasters, anytime there's like something bad that happens, a stock market crash, a real estate collapse, whatever the case is, it always opens up so many opportunities. So when we look at like just most recent one with COVID, for me, so my business partner is Chris Naugle, which by the way, if you go to chrisnaugle.com and scroll down the page a little, we got a merch section, so you can check out the BYOB hats, and we got the hoodies and everything on there. So check that out, chrisnaugle.com. But it opens up these opportunities because, Chris and I were out doing live events prior to COVID. We were actually in Orlando, Florida, in a hotel ballroom when the news came on and was like, hey, the country's shutting down. Like, you're going to be locked up for 2 weeks. We're like, holy shit. We had just launched this company, put countless hours, countless money into it. We had gone out and done like 4 or 5 events only. And the thing gets shut down where, hey, our entire business model just got ended. So instead of just giving up and being like, well, that's a wrap, we'll see what happens after COVID. We said literally the very day Chris and I are on the phone and together, we're like, all right, how are we going to pivot? So we completely pivoted. We brought in the best online marketers. We brought in the best people to create funnels and sales. And we learned internet marketing. We learned how to do Zooms. We learned how to do webinars. We learned how to create this online content where we could still share this very powerful message. I mean, it's so important, like you said, to get this stuff out there for everybody. So we found a way to make that happen. And when you look back on it, 2.5 years ago now, like, I don't think we would be the spot that we are today if it wasn't for that happening, because we would have continued to do what we were doing and we probably would have missed out on this incredible opportunity where now I'm able to come on podcasts with people like you, John, and get this message out to so many more people. So we took a negative and turned it into a huge positive. And I have many stories like that throughout COVID of things that I did personally that I won't get into right now. But I mean, it happened in '08. I mean, how many people do you know that lost everything in '08, but they didn't give up? They started buying again, and now they're multimillionaires because of the opportunity. I mean, there's houses we were selling this past year that went up 4 and 5 times in value from when we bought them in 2010, 2011, just skyrocketed. And now we're taking that cash, we're keeping it moving through being our own banks, which we'll talk about in a second. And now we're in a position where, hey, if things do come back down, I mean, there's a lot going on in the economy and the markets right now, John. I mean, I don't know how closely you follow the stock market, the real estate market, what the Fed is doing, all the different policy and everything that's coming out right now. But everything is coming together. The long-term cycles, the short-term cycles, everything's merging right now into this crazy perfect storm where I think we're going to see some pretty hard days ahead. I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see a pretty hefty stock market crash. Very hefty, if I'm being honest here. I think real estate's going to pull back and come down. And I think, but what's going to happen is it's going to create a lot of opportunities if we're prepared. So for me, right now is one of the most important times in history for you to start understanding money, to start understanding what do I need to do right now to be prepared when this happens, because it's going to create more millionaires and billionaires than any other time in history. How do I know that's going to happen? Because it happens every time there's a crash. It happens every time there's there's a downturn. I mean, you look back to like the .com crash in 2000 and all the companies that started after that made hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, I think Uber and these Lyft companies and things came out of '08 crash because they were solving problems that people were having. So anytime there's these disasters that occur, there's so much opportunity that arises. And that's the position that we're in right now for those of you that want to really take advantage of it.
Yeah, and to add on to that a little bit too, it's like, even if there's no crash, right? We're in the largest transfer in wealth in human history. It's never been easier to become successful. It's never been easier to build a brand. It's never been easier to find a way to make some form of income. It's even if there's no crash ahead, for that alone, you should still be learning money and still find people to teach you money so that you can understand what's going on and take part in the greatest transfer of wealth in human existence. And so I think on that note, let's get right into it. So for anyone who never even heard of like this entire concept, how do you break that down? Where would you start?
Yeah, so becoming your own bank, it's the idea of so this is a concept that I teach, that I have a couple mentors, Brent Kessler, Chris Naugle, who taught me this about 3 years ago. This is a strategy that I didn't know anything about 3 years ago. And I now own multiple accounts policies. And I use it, almost all of my income flows through it now. And it's just very, very powerful. Once you learn it, you can never go back to unlearning it, but it's not new. So the strategy of becoming your own bank and doing what we do with what's called the infinite banking concept has been around for a couple hundred years. Actually, it's been used by some of the wealthiest families, people like the JPs, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Chases. In fact, what I teach is done by the banks themselves. So becoming your own bank, a lot of what I teach when it comes to money, all we do is we mimic what the wealthy do and we mimic what banks do. And why do we mimic what those two groups of people do? Well, wealthy people obviously know how to make money, right? They know how to create success. And once they have it, they know typically how to keep it in most cases. And then the banks, do the banks know how to make money? Absolutely, right? The banks, that's what they do. The banks are in the business of money. So this is what we do is we mimic banks. So let me ask you this question, John. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. When it comes to the banks, their money supply, it's called the M1 money supply. It's where all of their money is held and stored. Do you know what banks do with their M1 money supply? Over 90% of their money is in two different areas, two different sections. Do you know what those are?
Off the top of my head, no.
Number one, whole life insurance. So if you ever walk into a bank, and you guys can look this up, okay? Go to Power Financial or just go Google something called BOLI, BOLI. It stands for Bank Owned Life Insurance, okay? But you guys can check this out. But what happens is if you ever walk into a bank, if you notice how almost everybody in there has a name tag that says Vice President on it, right? So what that does by making all their employees vice presidents is it gives them an insurable interest on that employee, and it allows them to buy a whole life insurance policy on that individual. So you can check this out. The number two place that banks put their money, do you know where it is? Real estate. Banks own a lot of real estate. And think about it. If you drive down the road, there's branch offices everywhere. They own those buildings. If you go into any major city in the country, even little cities, any city anywhere in the country, the most beautiful skyscrapers, the most beautiful buildings downtown, what's at the name of those buildings almost always? A bank or an investment firm, right? Because these banks understand money. So if banks are putting their money into whole life and banks are putting their money into real estate, do you think it's a good idea for us to maybe do the exact same thing? And so this is what we teach. This is what we teach in money schools. We teach the 3 pillars of education. Those 3 pillars are real estate, money, and legacy. Because at the end of the day, the legacy is important. Because if you have family, if you have children, grandkids, you want to be known for something. Or maybe even if you don't, you just want to, you want to leave your mark on society, on this world when you leave. Well, that's what legacy is. And the way to get there is by understanding money. Because at the end of the day, what is money? Do you know what money is, John?
Bartering tool.
What's the definition of money? A tool?
A bartering tool, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. A barter, right. So it's a means of exchange. So at the end of the day, money, it can be freedom, it can be happiness, it can be whatever it is you want it to be, but really it's just a means of exchange. So right now it's $1. But once you understand that money is not a mystery, we're not taught about money, but just because you've never been taught it before doesn't mean it's complicated. It's very easy, actually. It's just you got to get past that stigma of, man, we don't talk about money. We don't talk about investing with other people. It's all private and personal. I'm scared of it, or I'm fearful of it, or I don't want to try something new because I don't want to lose it. Well, guess what? You don't have to. You don't have to take on any more risk. You don't have to work any harder. You don't have to work any longer. You just have to understand where your money goes first. And so these are all the concepts that we teach and why we teach them. Okay. So when it comes to becoming your own bank, this is nothing new. It's been used for hundreds of years. It's used by the banks themselves. All we do is we teach it in a way where anybody, you, John, anybody listening can take advantage of the exact same strategies that the ultra wealthy and the banks are doing themselves. So what is BYOB? Well, it's changing where your money goes first. Because let me ask you this, John, if you owned a hair salon, which do you, by the way? Because that hair is
not yet. Further down the line.
If you owned a hair salon, where would you go get your hair cut?
My own hair salon.
If you owned a restaurant and you have friends in town, where would you take them to eat?
My restaurant.
Okay. If you owned a bank, where would you go to deposit your money into your banking?
My own bank.
So why don't you? Why don't you own a bank yet? Because nobody's ever taught you the subject, right? Before, go to BauerFinancial.com, BauerFinancial.com. They research banks. They tell us banks make between 400 and 1,600% returns on the money that we leave at the bank. You realize when you go to the bank, you put money in your business account, your savings account. They don't like write your name on that dollar and stick it in a little box and wait for you to come get it, right? They take that money and they immediately get that money moving. So they lend that money out on mortgages. They lend that money out on car notes. They lend that money out on debts consolidation loans, on home remodel loans. They keep that money moving, and then they operate what's called a spread. So they're paying us, the numbers are relevant here, just for an example. They pay us 1% in our savings account. They're making, they charge somebody 5% on a home mortgage. They're making a 4% spread on that money. So that's exactly what we're going to start doing when we put the money into our bank, because the money has to go somewhere, right? So when we deposit the money into their bank, they make all the money. When we deposit the money into our bank, we make all the money. So the way that we do this, the way that we create this bank is through what's called a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy. Okay. This is why I brought up whole life insurance a second ago. Now, why do we use a whole life insurance policy? Just to clarify real fast, this whole life insurance policy is not something you call up your brother-in-law, your friend from high school, or your neighbor. I mean, everybody knows someone that sells insurance, right? Or you don't go on policygenius.com. It's not some off-the-shelf whole life insurance policy that they just give you like everybody else buys. This is specially designed and engineered for banking purposes. This is what me and my team at the Money Multiplier do all day, every day. This is all we do, is set up these policies for our clients, people like yourself, John. So the reason why we use whole life insurance with a mutually owned insurance company is because the government, the IRS, and the United States allow us to do so. There is no other vehicle that I can flow my money into and take advantage of something called uninterrupted compounding interest. So are you familiar with compounding interest, John?
Of course, yeah.
So compounding interest, Albert Einstein, I think, said it best. Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. He said, those who use it, those who understand it, use it. Those who don't, pay it. And when you see like that classic example of, would you rather have $1 million today or a penny today that doubles every day for a month? What would you rather have?
The penny. I heard this one before.
You better take the penny, because that penny over 31 days is going to grow to be like over $4 or $5 million. Okay. So you would have lost, if you would have taken the million, you would have lost out on millions of more dollars by being short-sighted. So that's the power of compounding interest. So what these policies allow us to do is put our money into this thing, and now we have compounding uninterrupted interest on all of the money we put into that thing for the rest of our life. And not only that, the money within there is tax-free growth. And even better, the money that's in there, we immediately have access to it to pull it back out and use it. Okay. So two laws for creating wealth that I've learned over the last 15 years. Write these down. Number one, you have to take advantage of both of these if you truly want to create wealth. Number one, you have to take advantage of compounding interest. And if you can have uninterrupted tax-free compounding interest, even better. Number two, money movement. So money sitting still is losing money, especially today. Where's inflation? 9.5%?
Yeah.
So money sitting still is losing always, especially in times like we're in right now today. Money in motion is always going to make more money. So anytime I look at one of my policies, I look at one of my accounts and I have money sitting there, I get a little anxious because I know that money's losing. I want that money out there working for me. I look at my dollars as little green army men, and I'm going to send those little green army men out there to go out there and take over other people's armies and capture them and bring home all of that to me, because I want my money always making more money for me. So this policy, thanks to the government, thanks to the IRS, allows me to do both things simultaneously. I can flow my money into there, take advantage of the uninterrupted compounding interest, immediately pull that money out and get that money moving in my real estate deals, in my private money lending deals, in my crypto investments, in the notes that I purchase, in everything that I'm doing on the investment side of my life. So that's what these things allow me to do. So why do we use whole life? Because it's the only vehicle that allows us to accomplish all of that in one vehicle. And why does the IRS allow us to do that? Well, it's because it's what they do. It's what the politicians do. It's what the ultra wealthy do. And who controls policy? Who controls the laws in this country? The wealthy and the politicians, period. I have an article. I'm not sharing anything on the screen today, but if you go and you watch, there'll be a link where you can connect. And I'm actually going to give you guys some free books and stuff. So I'll have John post that link up in the show notes. But not only will you get a couple free books on private money lending and all about this concept, called a book called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, but I'll also include a link where you can watch the full 90-minute presentation for what I'm talking about right now. And that goes into a little bit more depth what we're talking about right now. But at the end of the day, we do this because people like Joe Biden have 6 of these policies with Mass Mutual, for example. And Mass Mutual is one of the mutually owned insurance companies that we do business with to create these policies. So the reason why Biden has it, because they're private. They're protected. They're secure. The money that goes into there, he doesn't have to report it anywhere. It's not reported on his taxes. It's not reported on statements. He can take money out of that policy and nobody knows about it. You don't have to report it anywhere. So it's very private. On top of that, these policies are protected in most cases, in most states, from judgments, from liens, from lawsuits, from bankruptcies, things like that. So we're able to protect our wealth at the same time. And then at the end of the day, since it's on a whole life policy, once you do what we call graduate, once you pass away, what happens? What's on a whole life policy? Something called a death benefit. So all of that death benefit also then passes down to your children, to your grandkids, whoever's important to you in life, and starts creating that legacy aspect. So it accomplishes so many things for us and allows us. And the reason why the IRS allows us to do it, because it's what the banks do, it's what the ultra wealthy do, and it's what the politicians do. So all we're doing is mimicking exactly what they do with this concept.
Yeah, definitely. And I like a couple points to touch on is I always said that there's 2 ways to go about life. You either learn the rules of the game or find someone that does, because the game it's the game. We can't tear everything down and start from the ground up and make a whole new game. It's like, no, just either learn the rules of the game or, find a wealthy person that does. And a lot of people complain, especially I feel like my age, at least on social media, they point their fingers at all the wrong things and they get mad at this guy and that guy and the rich and the 1%, not realizing that if you make over $40,000 in America, you're part of the 1% globally. So it's like, who's really the 1%, when you're part of the 1%? And so it's like they get mad and they point these fingers at all these people. And it's like, if you literally learn how to play, you would win so much. And I posted a thing on Monopoly. It's like, no matter how you break apart the game, no matter if you redistributed the money after every go around, it's like there's always someone that ends up with the most. And that's just the game that we've been brought into. And so it's like, what are you going to sit there and, cry about it? It's like, the game is the game. It's like, learn how how to play it so you can excel and you can keep on going. And I love what you said too about the little money army men running around conquering other people's money, because I always said that money is the best worker. Money can work 24/7. Money doesn't have to wait. Money doesn't have to need a vacation, a 2-week unpaid vacation. Money doesn't need to sleep, to rest. It'll keep on going for you. And like money, another word for money is currency. What's currency? Motion. Anyone that knows about electricity, currency is moving. So if only to properly use your money, it has to be moving. If it's money sitting still, unless it's like maybe for like reserves, aside from that, all other money should be moving and in motion in some type of thing where it's doing something and conquering other little money men armies, similar to what you were saying. So yeah,
yep, absolutely.
So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at that, and we start talking about, this is what we've always been told in life. Like you said, with Monopoly, there's always that. And, you got to learn how to play the game, because the game that they teach us in college and grade school in traditional ways. I mean, think about did you ever have a corporate job, John? Did you ever have a real job?
I had a 3-week internship at a financial institution, but actual corporate, no. I always hated the idea of working corporate. Okay. Hated it.
Yeah, well, for most people, they start out to get a job because that's what they're told to do after school. So you go to this job, you're brand new out of college, let's say, and they sit down with HR and they start talking about the benefits you get with your job, right? So here's the paperwork for your health insurance. Here's the group term life insurance you're going to get. And, oh, hey, we also have a retirement vehicle for you called a 401k. Would you like to sign up for the 401k? And you're like, all right, well, what's a 401k? I mean, most people don't really know exactly what it is, but so they start telling you, they're like, well, it's a vehicle where, before you pay any taxes on your income, you can stick it into this retirement vehicle, and it's going to sit in there, and all the profit's going to grow tax deferred. So you don't have to worry about any of the taxes until later on. And, you're able to put it in the stock market where, over time, it's always going to increase and grow for you. And then at retirement age, you'll be able to retire and you can start pulling the money out then. And you're like, okay, well, I guess so. Like, does everybody do it? They're like, yeah, everybody does a 401k. It's a common thing. Everyone does it with the company. So you're like, all right, let me do that. But then we look back on it and we're like, well, what did I really just sign up for right there? Because what is a 401k really? So I'm putting money in, not paying taxes on the money right now. When, let's say you're 25 years old, you can't take the money out till you're 60. So for the next 35 years, you're going to not pay taxes on the money. But what do taxes seem to always do?
Increase.
Don't they seem to always go up? right? I mean, we're over $30 trillion in debt right now in this country, and we're coming out with bills every day, spending trillions and trillions and trillions of more. So at some point, that's going to have to be paid for somehow. So taxes are going to, I mean, to me, taxes at some point are going to go up, continue to go up, right? I mean, I think that's just common these days. So we're putting off paying taxes now to pay them in 35 years from now. So that might not be the best idea. Then I'm putting my money in, and my options for investing in a 401k are exactly the stock market, or the stock market. Like, I can't take that money and go buy a rental property or buy crypto or things like this, right? So I have limited options, which is fine. The stock market always goes up over time. But what if you're 59 years old, you're planning on retiring at 61, the market's already fell 20% this year. It could fall another 30, 40% in the next 2 years, where all of a sudden where you plan on being when you need the money, now all of a sudden it's down. Now what? You take it out again, out of the markets into a cash account, but then inflation's killing your wealth. So it's like, all right, you don't have any other options, so you're stuck in there. And let's say in 20 years later, you're like, well, you know what? I want to take some of that money out to buy a house, or I want to take some of that money out to do something in life or start a business. Guess what they're going to do? Not only are you going to pay taxes on it, they're going to penalize you for pulling your own money back out of the thing. So we're giving up control of our money and to do this thing just because it's the way that it's always been done. And that's what I kind of opened up with, if you remember, John. I was saying how what we're taught traditionally, it just doesn't work. It's why 95% of people are not able to retire the lifestyle in the way that they want to. So a lot of this traditional way of things. And then we look at, what are the three top wealth killers? Taxes, inflation, and volatility. So the volatility was the example I showed you right there. Well, if the stocks are down, you need them, then what do? I mean, how does this sound? Consistent, predictable income for the rest of your life. How does that sound?
Sounds amazing.
Well, that's what we're able to create using real estate, whether it's rental real estate, whether it's private money lending. And that's why we developed a community called Private Money Club. So you go to privatemoneyclub.com, and we created a community that connects borrowers and lenders and borrowers, because that retirement account that I was telling you about before, that 401k, here's the good news. When you leave your job, you now are able to take control of that 401k. You can't withdraw the money without paying taxes and penalties, but we can take that old 401k and we can transfer it to an IRA, and we can transfer it to a custodian that's called a self-directed custodian. Okay. So we can open up what's called a self-directed IRA. So a self-directed IRA is just like any other IRA, at Fidelity, at Morgan Stanley, whatever. But what self-directing means is we now can get our money out of the stock market, and I can now buy real estate with my retirement. I can now do private money lending with my retirement. I can now buy businesses with my retirement funds. And if I do a backdoor conversion on that money at the same time, if it makes sense to do that, and this is all stuff we can talk about on a strategy call, but if I do a backdoor Roth conversion at the same time, now all that money is in a retirement account that has tax-free growth for until I retire. So I can take money at 35 years old. I can go out there and I can buy crypto with it in a Roth IRA. Let's say I buy crypto today at $25,000 Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin goes to the moon, like everybody says it might do in the next 20 years. And let's say it goes to $500,000. I bought it at 25. That $475,000 in profit, I will pay zero taxes legally on any of that profit, $475,000. So we can start taking advantage of these kinds of things where we eliminate taxes from our life. We can start a business, start an LLC. We can take advantage of legal things. We can, once we get to a higher income, a high net worth level, we can do things like 1041 tax strategies, where we basically use complex trust and foundations and charities to eliminate our tax bill. There's a reason Warren Buffett said, I pay less in taxes than my secretary. One of my mentors when it comes to taxes, his name is Solomon Holamani. He's one of our affiliate partners with Money School. And Soleimani says there are two tax laws in this country, one for the informed and one for the uninformed. Both are legal. Right there. So we're going to start eliminating taxes. So these three wealth killers, there's little things that we can start doing once we understand money and where our money is. So that's the step one, is where is our money? Okay. So where's our retirement funds? Are we taking full advantage of everything that's on the books? What I mean by on the books, the United States makes laws, again, that let us take advantage of this stuff. So where's our retirement money? Can we move that over, take control of it, and get it moving into more smarter investments? Any cash we have. So instead of depositing, like I said earlier, money in your savings account, in your business account, let's deposit that into our own bank account where we're now getting all those gains. We're keeping all that interest we were giving to other people in our financial lives, and simultaneously we're taking advantage of uninterrupted compounding interest. It's just a matter of where our money flows first, because your money has to go somewhere, right? I'll give you a great example. I started a policy for a young lady. She was 41 years old. This was last year. Okay. She was a real estate investor. She wanted to put $150,000 into her bank, into her policy the first year. And then she wanted to put $50,000 a year into it after that, which, by the way, if you're listening right now and you don't have $150,000 to stick in, it doesn't matter. What you want to do is a minimum 10 times your age on a monthly basis. So I'm 39 years old. So if I wanted to start my first policy and didn't have a lot of cash flow, $390 a month going into it, and I could become my own bank. And then you build from there. You start stacking policies from there. So your financial situation doesn't matter. As long as you can save a little bit, we can get you started with banking. You got to start somewhere, right? So she wanted to put $50,000 a year in, though. In the 8th year of that policy, she puts $55,000 into it. Her policy grows by, increases by $68,000. Okay. So she had an $18,000 increase the second she put money into her bank. Okay. It was a 38% cash on cash return. She then, in the 8th year, what she can do is she can take that money and she can pull it out of the policy. Now she's going to pay 4 to 5% interest to the insurance company as a loan to take the money out. But what that allows her to do is keep the entire amount within her policy compounding and growing the entire time. So she pulls the money out to do a private money loan. So through the private money club right now, most private money loans to borrowers are 12%. So let's use 12% as an example. So if I was to take my money out of my Wells Fargo savings account right now to do a private money loan, I lend that money to, let's say you, John. Let's say you're doing a house flip, right? So I lend the money to you, John. You pay me 12% returns for the year. At the, maybe monthly interest payments, and at the end of the year, I get my money back. I made 12% on my money. I take the balance, I put it back into my savings account, and then I wait for the next private money deal and I do it again, right? Well, here's the difference. When I take the money from my policy, it's same exact thing. I'm going to make 12% on the private money loan, but my money within the policy grew 38% that same year. So I paid 4% for that money. So instead of earning 12% that year, once I do the math, I just grew my wealth by 44%. I didn't work any harder. I didn't work any longer. I didn't take on any more risk. It's just where my money went first. Because over the years, instead of depositing it into someone else's bank, making them rich, I deposited it into my bank, making me and my family rich. Does that make sense?
Yeah, with the numbers and stuff. So pretty much essentially what you're saying is that when you pull your money, let's say I put $50,000 in. As soon as I put that in, my money is then increased in value because I put it into my own, whole life insurance policy.
Yes. So just to clarify, the first year or two, the amount available that you have to use within your policy, within your new bank, is going to be a little bit less. So you put 50 in, maybe you have 40, 45,000 available the first year. The second year you put 50 in, now you're right at 50. But from that third year, you put 50 in, now you got 53, let's say 55 available. And then each year for the rest of your life, as you put money into this thing, you get more and more and more available to you. And that's due to the uninterrupted compounding interest of the money of every dollar that you put into that thing. So it takes a little time. This is not a lottery ticket where you're leveraging it immediately, but it will create you as a millionaire if you're willing to do the marathon. And don't worry, if this is complicated right now, I get it. It's a lot to kind of talk about on a podcast like this. This is why we have the full 90-minute presentation with the full slide deck and everything. And this is why me and my team offer hand-holding. We support you, the initial consultation, strategy call to get the policy set up properly. And then once you have it, we literally have a team that holds your hand to teach you how to do it. And we create these money movement plans to solve whatever your goals are. And we do all of this for free of charge. That's the most beautiful thing about it, John. Because it's a whole life policy, the insurance company pays me commission for bringing them business, which makes, so you, John, anybody listening, you guys never pay me a dime. We do all of this completely free of charge. And as long as you're a client of ours for 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we give you all the support and help that you need.
Yeah, and that's amazing because a lot of people don't understand that. Like, they always think there's some type of barrier at entry, and usually that is information. And what you're pretty much just saying to my audience is that, hey, we're there with you. not, telling you what to do. We're there with you every step of the way up until and then beyond once you get that life policy and stuff, which is an amazing opportunity for everyone and something that I definitely want to get into myself because 10 times my age. So to date myself, I'll be paying $200 a month, which is extremely affordable. And if, as you're saying, if the mayor's done, most of my audience is people similar, like close to my age. It's like if we could start doing this now, by the time we're 30, we can, be set up. And one of the things I seen in the YouTube video, they kind of mentioned like after a certain point in time, they get other whole life insurance policies, like they get more. So can you kind of go a little bit into that? At what point does someone decide, why would one decide to get multiple life insurance policies if they only have one life?
Great question. Absolutely. And on that, I mean, the younger, the sooner, the better with this, right? Because compounding interest works off of time. So the longer you can compound the money, it's literally the number one thing I hear all day, every day when I'm talking to clients and new clients on the phone is, man, I wish I would have known about this sooner. I wish I would have learned about this 10 years ago when I was in my 30s or 20s or whatever the case might be. It's why last year I opened up a policy for my son when he was 5 years old, because he's now going to have this compounding interest in his life forever. And you should see what this thing looks like when he gets to college age and beyond. Like, it's rocking. So if he wants to go to college, we'll use it to fund that. If when he gets his first car, we'll use it to fund that and recapture all the money. One of the things that we teach you in the full 90-minute is how to recapture all of the money, how to get all the money back for every car you'll ever buy, drive, and own in the future, how to get all your money back. So you car people out there, have fun, buy the cars. This system will allow you to recapture all of that money back into your financial life. So I started for my son very, very young. And so the reason why you'd have multiple policies are a few different reasons. It's either fear or it's finances. So we have a lot of people that see this concept, they get it, but they don't fully believe it yet. Okay. So they want to start with something smaller, right? Maybe they could do $50,000 a year into the policy, but they're like, well, I'd rather just do 5,000 just to make sure you guys are actually telling the truth. Okay. So then if we start a policy for 5,000 a year going into it, that becomes the max they're able to put into that policy, because the IRS does regulate these. There's something called a MEC rule. MEC, it stands for Modified Endowment Contract. And the MEC rules are what keep the policy tax-free. So if we were to put too much into it over the MEC limit, over what it's designed for, then it could cause a taxable event, and it's not considered life insurance any longer, and it can mess. So we never want to do that. But there's no limit on how many life insurance policies somebody can have. So once you get to the point where you're like, all right, I have one policy, I'm putting $5,000 a year in. Well, now I want to put another $20,000 a year into it. You can't put it into that existing policy. So you start a second policy. And now you have two policies. It's just like a banks do. So the banks have their corporate headquarters, and then they have branch offices all over the country. So all we're doing is we're starting our first policy, and we're building little branch banks with our additional policies. So it could be a fear thing, or it could just be finances. For example, I have a friend, Devin Burr, and he started with his first policy. What he could afford. And then he got real heavy into real estate and started killing it, like doing all kinds of deals where he was making 100 grand here, 150 there, and just crushing it. So for him, it was financial. Once he had more money coming in, now he had more money that he could flow through the system, because again, that money's got to go somewhere. You're saving money, you're putting it somewhere. So he learned with a small policy how this works. And now he's got 9 policies in less than 2 years that he started, and he's just flowing all his money through. So that's how you start building your banking system.
I love that you use that example, because that's what I'm in. So I'm a real estate agent myself. I got into real estate for the investing side of things. So as you know, real estate, there's a steep learning curve. And so it's like, and like most people my age, even if they're not in real estate, they're probably not making, bank yet. So it's like, what you're saying, that we could start off making the bare minimum while we're still developing ourselves. And once, extra income starts coming in, whether it's through real estate or whatever career path one decides to go down, they can open up another policy at that point in time. And then let's say my income 10Xs. And let's say I went from $2,000 a year to I can able now put $200,000 a year. I just open up a second policy and then have it set to where I'm comfortable with that one now that I have more money.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And you're right about real estate. I mean, it's definitely a learning curve. I mean, I've been a licensed real estate agent for, I guess, 15 years now. I'm not real active. I'll do some referrals here and there. I have a good team that goes out there on the realtor side. But over the years, I've concentrated more on the investment side. But my biggest advice for that, get a mentor, get a coach, have somebody help you. I mean, you can lose a lot of money in real estate quicker than you make it. But I love real estate, man. It's one of those things where you can see it, you can control it. I can see a house. I know what it needs to be done. I know how to drive the value up. I know almost to the dollar, what it's worth now, how much will go into it, what I can sell it for. I love every aspect of it. And not only that, but there's so many different areas of real estate. There's, if you're starting out where you don't have a lot of money, but you're willing to go out there and hustle and make things happen, get into wholesaling, start getting those $5,000 and $10,000 checks coming and start building that wealth. And then maybe transition, hey, instead of wholesaling this one, I've been building my relationships. I've been building my network. I'm ready for my first flip. Let's get the contractors in there. Let's do the flip ourselves. Okay. Well, maybe you don't have the money to buy that flip. Well, that's where you turn to private money. And that's where the private money club could definitely come in handy as well. So, maybe you get into flipping, and then from there, you learn the BRRRR strategy where, hey, instead of just cashing out and paying all these taxes and constantly working, well, let me start developing some passive income. Let me start having this mailbox money coming in. How do you do that? Well, you do that through rental properties. You do that through different private funds, through private money lending. But the rentals I absolutely love as well. You can buy them. You get the appreciation aspect. You get the rental income coming in. Somebody taught me when I first got started in real estate. They told me, because I asked them, I was like, well, how many, what should my goal be? Like, how many houses should I try and obtain? Like, what should my rental portfolio look like? And they said, Stephen, it's different for everybody. What do you want to do in life? Like, how do you want your lifestyle to be? And they said, what you should do from this point forward is anytime you ever purchase something, use it with passive income profits. So if you want to buy a new car and that car payment is going to be $800 a month, well, you need to buy a rental property or a duplex or enough houses that provide $800 a month coming in, where you can use that money to now buy your purchase or whatever you want to do. And when I started thinking of it that way, I started quantifying it and saying, okay, that's now my houseboat. That's now my car, my boathouse, right? Because this house is paying for my boat, or this is my car house because this house is now paying for my car, or whatever the case might be, my vacation house, right? And then the money starts flowing in. So real estate's great because there's so many different aspects. I mean, we do a webinar every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern called Wealth Webinar Wednesdays. And today was all about real estate and private money lending. And I had a couple of my borrowers on today. One of them is doing single family lots, where they're buying lots, and they work with one of the largest construction companies in the country, and they're building houses and they're doing them quick. It's affordable housing. I lend my money to them because I know where it is. It's in Florida. It's in a great market. Even if things turn, it's going to stay strong. And it's the type of housing that people need. I have another developer that I had on today with me that manages 15 to 20, $30 million developments at a time. We've already raised over $15 million with him for the private money club. He pays great interest, but he's very good at what he does. He's been doing it for a long time. And so they're creating these communities that are already sold to hedge funds these are rental communities. And that's a great area of real estate to be in right now, especially so things to stay away from right now, in my opinion, like big, expensive, multi-million-dollar flips, things that are going to take a long time, things where if the market does turn are going to be the first to get hit and come down, where if I'm stuck in the middle of a 12-month flip that I was expecting to sell for $3 million, the market comes down, all of a sudden my profit's out the door where I could almost lose money. So things like that. Now, 2 years ago, that would have been a great market to be in as far as real estate. So no matter what we see, we can get into it. Apartment complexes, mobile home parks, raw land, storage units. These are all different areas of real estate that we can take advantage of depending on our situation. So especially whether it's active real estate or whether it's passive real estate. But the private money lending, your money's secured by that asset, just like the banks do with the mortgage. You're in first lien position. You control it. You can make the decisions. So there's just so many different areas, man. I love real estate. So I love that that's what you're in, and that's how you're starting to build your wealth, because it's.
Well, Rich, that poor dad set me on the right track, right? So I'm willing to work, unlike a lot of people, like work without pay, essentially. I mean, I closed 3 rental transactions, and I do have a coach, as you mentioned, but it's like, as you said, this is a very steep learning curve, and like I'm also extremely creative, which I learned not too long ago. It also could be, your biggest blessing, or it can also be a curse, because like creativity usually doesn't get anything done. It's great for ideas and great for conversation, but you have to get into action, which is where I'm in right now. Right. And so, like, as we start wrapping up a little bit, tell us a little bit. You've kind of plugged in throughout the podcast episode as to your website and your Wealth Wednesdays. So, where could people find you, and what do you have, coming up in the future? Yeah, definitely. So, there's a couple books I wanted to give everybody
for being on this podcast, just as like a special gift. So my two mentors, my business partners, Chris Naugle and Brent Kessler, wrote a book called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery a few years ago. And it's an updated version of a book that you also need to go get called Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. But I want to give you a digital copy of Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. And then also I wanted to give you a book called The Private Money Guide, the Private Money Guide Real Estate Edition. So these will both be very powerful books that get into a little bit more depth, everything that we've spoken about here today. So to get those books for free, digital copies, just go to moneyschoolrei.com, moneyschoolrei.com/podcast, moneyschoolrei.com/podcast, and just put in your name, email, and phone, and I'll digitally send you those, as well as the schedule for all of the free webinars we do every single week. We give all of our best stuff away for free, so I'd love for you to be able to take advantage of all of that. Now, I'm all over social media, of course, Stephen Nagy, so you guys should be able to find me. Stephen Nagy on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. The YouTube channel at the Chris Naugle. As far as things we have upcoming, we just finished our Money School Essentials. We did a hybrid live in-person and virtual event up in Buffalo, New York this past weekend. So we'll have another one of those coming up this fall. So keep your eyes out for that. We have a mastermind coming up for the worldwide launch of the Private Money Club in October at Sundance, Utah, which is an unbelievable event. And we are constantly speaking and attending other people's events. So if you run like a RIA, if you have like a local meetup group, something like that, and you guys would like us to come in and present this kind of information, present becoming your own banker, how to become your own banker, we would love to do that. So reach out to me and we can talk more about what that would look like. But we have a little private airplane we fly around in, at least on the East Coast, to do these events. So we'd love to meet up with you and be able to do that. And we're constantly putting out training and education and doing events. So just follow along.
Yeah, that's amazing. And actually, my guest for next week is actually the COO of the CC RIA. So I'm good friends with him. So maybe after we explore the podcast, to get in touch with him and see what he thinks about the BYOB system and stuff like that, and hopefully get you guys in touch.
I love it. I love it, John. And one thing I just wanted to add real fast is, we're talking about RIAs and meetups and groups. I mean, that's literally, to me, one of the most important things you can do, especially when you're new. There's no easier way to go out there and meet people and learn from other people and start building relationships. If there's anything that I've learned in this business over the last almost 15 years, is that relationships are the most important aspect when it comes to business, especially when it comes to real estate. And your network equals your net worth. Like we've all heard that before. It couldn't be more true. So the more you can get out there and attend masterminds, attend events, hop on webinars, go to local meetups and RIAs, I guarantee you it will take your life to another level by doing that. I mean, the connections that I have today, I was just at a mastermind a couple months ago, and I hung out all weekend. I had lunch every day chatting with Sharon Lecter. And if you know Rich Dad Poor Dad and Kiyosaki, she's the one who wrote, a lot of people credit her for actually writing Rich Dad Poor Dad, even though Kiyosaki got a lot of credit for it. So people like Sharon Lecter, people like Tony Robbins, these are people that I've got to know over the years at different events and that I can reach out to. And so those connections are what allow you to do so much. And really, we can all create success, but if you want to take it to the next level, those relationships in life are what it's all about. So hop on podcasts, listen, John and I'm sure we have so much we're going to be able to talk about after this now and remain friends over the years. But that's what it's all about, is just make those connections. So network. Yeah,
definitely. And now it's time for the final 4 questions. Just as everyone knows, is there 4 questions off the top of his head he has to answer. No prior knowledge of what these questions are. But let's start with the first one, right? First one is, what is the most impactful lesson that you learned in life?
Oh, there's a lot of different ways to go with that, right? I think, honestly, it's follow your dreams. I mean, it's so easy to fall into a rut of, let me go to my job, let me work, let me be comfortable. It takes somebody special to get out of that comfort zone. It takes somebody special to be able to turn off the TV and turn on a podcast. Or turn off, instead of going out on the weekends and going to a 3-day training and learning something to better yourself and get out of those ruts. And for me, I grew up in a crazy childhood, and I'm not going to get into it, but I saw both sides of a fence. So I saw where my family was on food stamps and we were on assistance, and money was very tight and it was very difficult with my single mom. And then on the other side of the fence, I saw how millionaires live because of something that happened when I was young. And I got to experience here and there how, people that have yachts and second and third and fourth homes around the country and be able to do where money's not really a concern. So I've seen both sides of the fence, and I've seen people fight over money. I've seen people get divorced over money. Money doesn't need to do that. Money, it shouldn't be something that is a negative effect on your life. Money should be nothing but positive. And a lot of that is mindset. So the more, like I was saying with the networking, the more you can read books, the more you can listen to podcasts, the more you can change your mindset, the better off you're going to be. So I would say when it comes to impact on my life, it's mentors, it's coaches, it's books, it's podcasts, and it's having that mindset that allow you to achieve those goals.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's probably the most
and so question number 2, what is the most admirable trait that you can that a person can have?
Honesty, 100%. If you're not on, like if I do business with somebody and I feel like they're not an honest or a moral person or have good ethics, or they're doing something just for the money part, like they don't care about the person involved, I'll never do business with them again. We kick them out. We never talk with them again. I warn other people. So honesty and integrity is very, very big for me. Like even in real estate, one of the reasons I love real estate so much is because you can create win-win situations. When I was doing when I was obtaining a lot of properties after the last crash, we were going in, we were helping people get out of their homes. We were doing cash for keys where otherwise they would have had nothing. We were finding solutions for people to solve their problem where they would benefit and I would benefit as well. And if you could find ways to help other people and create these win-win situations, you're going to be able to create a lot of success in life, but you're also going to be able to live life in a very honest and fulfilling way. So for me, honesty, integrity is
if you wanted to change someone's life with one book, what would you recommend? And I know you recommended several books throughout this podcast, but if you had to change someone's life, you only had one book to give them, which one are you handing them?
Hey, let's just go with Kiyosaki, man. We've been talking about him. Start with Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's basic, but it gets you thinking. And if you can get a book that gets you thinking, then who knows where your mind will lead you.
I lost you for a second, but luckily I got you back, so no worries. It'll pick up in the final recording. And then the last question is, what is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind in like a couple sentences?
It's for me, it's for my son. I mean, I have one son, he's 6 years old. And for me, it's leaving him in a better world than I was brought up in. And so the more I can do to not only provide, like, it's not about money though. I want to make that very clear. It's not about leaving him a bunch of money. It's about educating him, and not only him, but educating everybody, educating anybody that wants to learn more, that wants to change their life around the country. So the more lives I can impact, to me, that'll be the legacy that I want to leave. And it's what drives me every day to wake up. It's what drives me. I mean, barely any sleep over the weekend at the live event, flying right into town. I went from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. last night, bell to bell. Today I've been on, this is the 4th or 5th webinar I've been on. I'm hopping on one right after I get off with you as well. So just getting the message out there. And what drives me to do that is when people text me, when I get text messages, when I get the emails, when I get the phone calls, when I meet my clients in person, like I did over the weekend, that's what keeps me going. When they tell me, Stephen, because of what you taught us, because of the strategies that we're now following and implementing in our lives has completely changed. And I get those messages almost daily now. And that kind of thing to me is going to create my legacy. I want people to think of me as somebody that not only did very well in life for him and his family, but also highly affected for a positive way, a lot of other people out there in the world as well. So I hope that that's what my legacy is. And
yeah, that's extremely powerful.
To make it
and
happen.
Stephen, it was a extreme pleasure and honor to bring you onto the podcast. I definitely took a lot from this, and I trust all the audience will definitely take a lot from what we talked about today. As I said, it was a pleasure. And, if I have the chance to stop by one of these events, I'll definitely make sure to stop by if you're ever in the Northeast. And I'll make sure to have all the links posted and blast you out on virtually every platform that you can think of.